You know the hour when nothing more can be solved, and still your mind keeps reaching. The room is quiet. The problem is not moving. The person has not answered. The past has not changed. The future has not promised anything. Yet something in you keeps holding, as if letting the grip loosen would mean you no longer cared. That is why letting go can feel dangerous. It can sound like weakness, like betrayal, like becoming too tired to protect what mattered. The hard question is not whether release feels pleasant. It is when letting go is wisdom and when it is avoidance dressed as peace. Stoicism asks what judgment or outcome you are still treating as yours to own. Taoism asks whether the force you are using has become part of the damage. Buddhism asks why clinging tries to make changing things give permanence. Here is the quieter way into it. By the end of tonight, I want to leave you with a clearer way to tell the difference between releasing a false grip and abandoning the responsibility that still belongs to you. If you enjoy thinking through questions like this with me, subscribing to the channel helps others find them too. Sharing the video helps even more. Let's begin. You may have noticed that the mind does not always hold things because it has a plan. Sometimes it holds because stopping feels unsafe. A quiet night exposes this. There is no meeting happening now, no argument happening now, no message being spoken into the room, and still the hand inside the mind tightens. It reaches toward a reply, a mistake, a face, a sentence, a result. It says, "If I stop, then I have accepted too much." That feeling deserves more respect than the usual advice gives it. It is too easy to call it overthinking. It is too easy to tell someone to relax, move on, breathe, or release. Those words may be gentle, but they can miss the moral weight of the grip. Often you are not holding because the object is pleasant. You are holding because it seems connected to loyalty. You keep returning to it because part of you believes attention is proof of care. This is where the first knot appears. Caring and gripping can become so close in the dark that they seem like the same act. You care about a person, so you replay the conversation. You care about a duty, so you rehearse the result. You care about a loss, so you keep the pain near, almost as if pain were the last honest form of nearness. The trouble is that pain can be real and still not be the same as faithfulness. Stoicism, Taoism, and Buddhism will not answer that knot in the same way. That matters. If they are flattened into one soft lesson, the hard part disappears. Stoicism will ask whether you have given ownership to something outside your power. Taoism will ask whether more force has begun to tighten what you wanted to loosen. Buddhism will ask whether the demand to hold has become clinging, and whether clinging is asking change to become something it cannot be. Before any of those names help, the hand has to be seen. Imagine a cord lying across a dark table. It is attached to something beyond reach. Pulling harder does not bring the thing closer, but the hand keeps pulling because it cannot bear the meaning of stopping. That is often how the mind behaves at night. It is not solving, it is proving. It is proving that the matter still matters, but proof can become a burden. A person can love and still stop rehearsing the same wound. A person can be responsible and still stop pretending that worry is work. A person can grieve and still refuse to turn grief into a command that the world reverse itself before morning. None of this means the problem is small. It means the way of holding must be questioned. The easy answer says, if it matters, keep holding. Another easy answer says, if it hurts, let it go. Both are too quick. Some things must be carried, some duties have not ended, some apologies still need to be made, some boundaries still need to be kept. Some losses deserve honest sorrow. If release becomes a way to dodge those things, release has become another kind of falsehood. So the first clean question is not, how do I become calm? It is, what exactly am I holding? Am I holding an action that is truly mine, or an outcome that never belonged to my will? Am I holding steady effort, or force that is making the knot tighter? Am I holding care, or clinging to a form that cannot stay? The difference matters more than the mood. When the room is silent, The mind wants a verdict. It wants to know whether to fight or surrender, stay or leave, keep trying or stop. Philosophy is slower than that. It asks for a clearer look before a verdict. It asks whether the hand is protecting something, punishing itself, or trying to own what cannot be owned. The knot has to be seen before it can be loosened. Not every grip is love. Not every release is wisdom, and not every refusal to let go is courage. One more detail belongs here before the first knot is named. The grip often grows strongest when no witness is present. In public, you may know how to act. You answer, work, smile, drive, cook, finish the day. Alone, the inner hand returns to the hidden cord because it wants a private court where the case can be tried again. That court feels serious, but it has no judge who can end the trial. Philosophy enters because the trial needs better questions, not another hour of testimony. Epictetus, Laozi, and the Buddha have not entered as decoration. They enter because the late-night hand needs language more exact than worry. A repeated thought can feel like evidence, but repetition often means only that the mind has found a track and cannot leave it. When you notice that track, do not insult yourself for being there. Ask whether the thought still carries new information. If it does not, the grip may be continuing after its work is done. That recognition is not peace. It is the first honest distance between care and compulsion. The question can also be turned toward time. Some things can only be done tomorrow, and the mind hates that boundary. It wants to pay tonight in advance. It wants to suffer now as a deposit on future control. But no ancient tradition in this film treats suffering as currency that buys certainty. Stoicism will return you to the act that is yours. Taoism will ask whether the payment itself is damaging the hand. Buddhism will ask why the self believes certainty must be purchased before care can rest. So the hand that keeps holding is not stupid. It is afraid of what would be lost if it opened. That fear deserves patience, but not obedience. If the cord is duty, duty can be named. If the cord is a judgment, judgment can be inspected. If the cord is force, force can be softened. If the cord is clinging, clinging can be seen. Naming is not the same as solving, but the unnamed knot rules the room more completely. A grip also has a memory. It remembers moments when letting go really did mean neglect. Maybe someone stopped trying too soon. Maybe someone used calm words to avoid repair. Maybe you watched a situation fall apart because no one wanted the discomfort of staying present. So when your own hand tightens, it may be trying to prevent that old failure from repeating. The grip is not foolish just because it is tiring. It is often a frightened guardian standing at the door of something valuable. That is why the first movement must be patient. If philosophy arrives too quickly, it can sound like another person telling you to be reasonable before they have understood what is at stake. We have all heard advice that is technically neat and humanly useless. Release cannot be treated as a command from outside the wound. It has to be discovered by seeing the difference between what care protects and what fear keeps alive. The hand also confuses nearness with control. If you keep the problem in thought, it feels near. If it feels near, it feels less lost, but nearness is not the same as power. A memory can be close and still unchangeable. A future can be imagined and still undecided. A person can be loved and still free from your possession. This is the sorrowful dignity of the problem. The very things worth caring about often cannot be held in the way fear wants to hold them. So before the first tradition speaks, stay with the table. Do not rush to wisdom. See the cord, the hand, the tiredness, the belief that more tightening proves more love. Once that belief is visible, the rest of the journey can begin without insulting it. The first human task is not release, but distinction. A clenched mind needs to know whether it is guarding a duty, guarding an image of itself, or guarding a fear it has not named. Those are different labors. Duty can ask for action. Self-image asks for endless defense. Fear asks for company and truth. When all three are fused, the night becomes unbearable because every thought seems necessary. Separating them does not make the heart light. It makes the burden less dishonest. The knot image is patient because it does not accuse the cord. A cord can bind a package, save a climber, guide a hand, or cut the skin when pulled too hard. The moral question is not cord or no cord. It is the way the cord is held. That is why letting go must be studied slowly. The hand may need to open, but it also needs to understand why it closed. Imagine 3 knots on the same black table. From a distance they look alike. Each is a form of holding. Each seems to ask for release. But when you come closer, you can see that they are not the same knot. One is tied to something outside the reach of the hand. The hand pulls as if the distant thing could be owned by effort. That is the Stoic knot. Epictetus would ask whether the mind has confused what belongs to its own power with what belongs to fortune, other people, timing, bodies, reputation, and the past. Another knot has been tightened by too much force. The cord might have moved if the hand had slackened, but panic made the pull harsher. That is the Taoist knot. Lao Tzu would ask whether the will has become so determined to impose one shape that it no longer feels the grain of the situation. This is where the Tao Te Ching speaks of Wu Wei, not as emptiness of action, but as action without coercive strain. The third knot is inside a closed fist. The hand is not only trying to use the cord, it is trying to make the cord part of itself. That is the Buddhist knot. The Four Noble Truths do not condemn care. They diagnose craving and clinging, the movement by which the mind asks what changes to provide guarantee, identity, and permanence. This difference is the spine of the whole question. Many people use letting go as if it were one thing. Relax, accept, detach, move on. But those words can hide different mistakes. If the mistake is false ownership, then the question is Stoic. What is actually yours? If the mistake is coercive force, then the question is Taoist. Has trying become interference? If the mistake is clinging, then the question is Buddhist. What demand is hidden inside your care? You can feel why one answer would be tempting. One answer would be easier to remember at night. One answer would turn the difficulty into a phrase. Yet a phrase can be too smooth. It may comfort the part of the mind that wants release without honesty. The traditions are useful here because they resist that smoothing when they are treated seriously. Stoicism is often weakened into a slogan about control. Control what you can, ignore the rest. That is not enough. Epictetus is sharper. He is asking about ownership of judgment, desire, aversion, pursuit, and action. He is not saying that externals never matter. He is saying they are not yours in the way your assent is yours. A reply can matter without being yours to command. Taoism is often weakened into a slogan about going with the flow. That is not enough either. Water does not become wise by being vague. In the Tao Te Ching, water benefits things, takes the low place, moves by timing, and does not need status in order to act. Wu Wei is not laziness. It is the end of a certain kind of forcing that makes action stiff, proud, brittle, and blind. Buddhism is often weakened into a slogan about detachment. That is the most dangerous flattening of all, because it can sound like nothing matters. The Buddha's diagnosis is not that love is the wound. It is that craving and clinging make a demand that changing experience cannot satisfy. The teaching of impermanence does not cancel care. It asks why care has been asked to become possession. So the table has 3 knots. One asks, what am I pretending to own? One asks, where has my force become the problem? One asks, what am I clinging to as if it could secure me? A single life problem can contain all 3. A relationship can involve false ownership of another person's response, too much force in the attempt to repair, and clinging to the identity the relationship gave. But if the knots are blurred, the release will be blurred too. At night, blurring is tempting. The mind wants one instruction because it is tired, but tiredness is exactly why the distinction helps. You do not need a perfect answer before morning. You need enough clarity not to mistake panic for duty. 1 table, 3 knots, 3 different mistakes. The image of 3 knots also keeps humility in the comparison. No tradition gets to stand above the others as the one complete cure. Stoicism sees one danger clearly. Taoism sees another. Buddhism sees another. Each can also be misused. That is why the table is better than a ladder. We are not climbing from a simple school to a superior school. We are looking at the same human hand from 3 angles, each one exposing a different confusion. The first benefit of comparison is that it interrupts the fantasy of one universal key. Many people want one sentence that can be applied to every ache. Accept what you cannot control, go with the flow, do not attach. Each sentence has a source behind it, and each can become shallow when pulled away from that source. The Stoic sentence is about assent and agency. The Taoist sentence is about fit, timing, and non-claiming action. The Buddhist sentence is about craving, impermanence, and the path. A key used on the wrong lock only damages the door. This is also why the table image remains useful. A knot is not evil because it is tight. Tightness is a fact to examine. One knot may have formed because you confused another person's response with your own action. One may have formed because effort went past sensitivity and became pressure. One may have formed because love became a demand for permanence. These are not identical failures. They ask for different honesty. If all 3 traditions seem calm from far away, that is because many forms of wisdom stop feeding panic. But the surface calm hides different reasoning. Stoicism disciplines judgment. Taoism changes the quality of action. Buddhism loosens the demand for possession. The distinctions matter because the listener's fear matters. Letting go must be tested, not praised in advance. The comparison also protects each tradition from being used as decoration. It is easy to place Stoicism, Taoism, and Buddhism beside each other like 3 lamps producing the same soft light. But Epictetus, Laozi, Zhuangzi, and the Buddha do not simply repeat one another in different clothing. Their languages grew from different worlds, different practices, and different diagnoses of human confusion. Similar calm on the surface can hide very different accounts of what the mind is doing. This matters because a wrong diagnosis can make a sincere person more confused. If your main error is false ownership, then being told to flow may leave the ownership intact. If your main error is coercive force, then a control inventory may not touch the stiffness in the action. If your main error is clinging, then a technique for accepting externals may not reach the demand that experience become mine. The wrong medicine may not be poison, but it may leave the deeper knot untouched. At the same time, the knots can overlap. You might falsely own a reply, force a conversation, and cling to an identity built around being chosen. That is why the table image matters. The knots are separate enough to see, but close enough that one hand can move between them. The task is not to sort a life into pure categories. It is to stop using one vague phrase for 3 different troubles. If the mind asks for the quickest slogan, let the table slow it down. Which knot is tightening now? Which tradition can name it without stealing the work of the others? That patience is already a kind of release. A useful comparison does not ask the traditions to agree before they have spoken. It lets disagreement become part of the value. Epictetus will sound sharper than Laozi. Laozi will sound more fluid than Epictetus. The Buddhist analysis will go deeper into identity than either of them here. Those differences keep the mind from escaping into one pleasant fog. The listener may eventually find that one tradition names tonight more clearly than the others. That is allowed. A problem of false ownership needs Stoic clarity. A problem of distorted effort needs Taoist sensitivity. A problem of possessive craving needs Buddhist seeing. The same life may need all 3 at different hours. Wisdom is not always one instrument. You can lie awake holding a future answer as if worry could make it obedient. The mind says, I am being responsible. It says, if I stop thinking about this, I am abandoning it. But there is a strange cruelty in asking the mind to carry what it cannot command. It keeps you near the problem without necessarily giving you any real agency over it. Epictetus begins the Enchiridion with a line that has survived because it cuts cleanly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. The clean line can sound simple until you try to live it. What is up to us, for Epictetus, includes judgment, impulse, desire, aversion, and our own acts. What is not up to us includes the body, property, reputation, office, and all that does not belong to our own action. The point is not that the body, or reputation, or money, or another person's answer does not matter. That would be childish. Externals matter in the life we actually live. The point is that they do not belong to the will in the same way judgment and action do. You can write the letter carefully, you cannot own how it is read. You can apologize honestly, you cannot own whether forgiveness arrives. You can prepare the work, you cannot own the verdict of everyone who sees it. This is why Stoic release is not less agency. It is agency made more exact. The smaller circle is not a weaker circle. It may be the first honest circle. When the mind stops claiming what is not its own, the act that remains can become clearer. You are not asked to become indifferent to the answer. You are asked not to pretend the answer is part of your own hand. That sounds helpful until the real pressure begins, because the things outside the circle press on the body. Reputation can affect livelihood. Health can change your whole life. A person's reply can change a relationship. The past can shape what tomorrow is allowed to become. So the mind makes a mistake that feels natural. It confuses impact with ownership. Since this affects me, it must be mine to control. Epictetus would say no. William Cowes de Mekaketo, mythoses et pemedi. Ebandemiokiakam femes de parseke wapada. The fact that something touches you does not mean it belongs to you. Rain touches the skin, it does not become the will. Another person's anger can affect the room, it does not become your judgment unless you assent to the verdict it seems to carry. This is not a denial of difficulty, it is a refusal to let difficulty redraw the boundary of the self. The bathhouse example in the Enchiridion is ordinary on purpose. If you go to bathe, expect splashing, jostling, theft, bad manners. Then you can still go while holding a deeper aim. The example is small and serious harms should not be trivialized by it. But the structure matters. Stoicism does not say, because disorder may occur, do nothing. It says, act while remembering that the disorder was never yours to command. This matters in the hour when you keep rehearsing an outcome. The rehearsal may look like devotion, but it may be a hidden ownership claim. If I think about the reply enough, it will come. If I replay the mistake enough, the past will change. If I imagine the confrontation enough, I will possess the future before it happens. The mind may call this preparation. Often it is possession wearing the clothes of preparation. Marcus Aurelius gives another face to the same discipline. He had duties that could not be solved by private calm. He could not withdraw into an inner garden and call that virtue. The Stoic ruler still has to rise, speak, judge, endure, and act. But the act belongs to him in one way, and the vast answer of the world belongs to him in another. The difference is not comfortable, it is necessary. So ask the night-sized Stoic question slowly. What part of this is actually mine before morning? Perhaps one message can be written more honestly. Perhaps one apology is owed. Perhaps one boundary must remain. Perhaps one plan can be prepared. And perhaps the rest is being gripped because the mind is afraid that care without ownership will feel too small. Care is not ownership. That sentence is easy to hear and hard to believe. Epictetus asks you to believe it not as a comfort, but as a discipline. The hand can hold the pen, it cannot hold the other person's reading of the letter. This is not a license to become indifferent to what falls outside the circle. The Stoic can prefer health to sickness, trust to betrayal, safety to danger, friendship to isolation. The question is whether preference has become a claim of ownership. Preference can guide action. Ownership of externals turns action into torment. The line is difficult because the heart does not speak in diagrams, but the difficulty does not erase the usefulness of the line. The Stoic boundary becomes clearer when you bring it to one ordinary exchange. You can choose not to lie. You can choose to listen before defending yourself. You can choose to write the message without cruelty, but you cannot choose that the other person reads it with fairness, answers with maturity, or carries no old wound into the conversation. The mind still wants those things. Wanting them is not the error. Treating them as if they belong to your command is the error. This is why the line can feel like loss before it feels like strength. False ownership flatters the self. It says you are large enough to hold everything. Stoicism takes away that flattering burden. It leaves you with something smaller and more difficult. Your judgment now, your chosen act now, your refusal to add a false verdict now. The smaller field may feel disappointing to panic, but it is the only field where agency can stand without pretending. The night mind may object that this is too modest. It wants a grand answer. Epictetus gives a modest one because grandeur is often how false control hides. Do what belongs to you. Release the claim that the whole world must become part of your will. That is not emotional defeat, it is moral scale. The Stoic line also changes how blame works. If something outside your power has happened, the mind may still accuse itself as if total prevention were possible. It says, I should have known, should have controlled, should have secured every angle. Sometimes that accusation contains real information. Perhaps an action was careless. Perhaps an apology is owed. But often the accusation expands far beyond the act until it claims responsibility for weather, timing, another will, and the fragile chain of conditions no person can possess. Epictetus is useful because he does not let agency disappear into either excuse or fantasy. He does not say, nothing is yours, so nothing matters. He also does not say, everything that touches you is yours to master. He keeps returning to the faculty that judges, chooses, pursues, avoids, and acts. That faculty is not omnipotent, it is accountable. The line is narrow, but it is not empty. This can make responsibility less theatrical. You do not need to prove care by suffering over every external. You prove it, if proof is needed, by the quality of the act that remains yours. The careful sentence, the honest admission, the refusal to retaliate. The choice to prepare without pretending preparation owns the result. These are quieter than worry, so they can feel less dramatic. But quieter does not mean less real. At night, drama often pretends to be conscience. The Stoic boundary asks conscience to become exact. What did I do? What can I do? What judgment am I consenting to? What outcome am I trying to drag inside my own skin? The answers may be humbling, but they are cleaner than carrying the whole sky as if it were a backpack. There is comfort in admitting what is not yours, because it stops the mind from conducting impossible negotiations. You do not need to negotiate with yesterday as if it might change its testimony. You do not need to negotiate with another person's private judgment as if it were your property. You do not need to negotiate with chance as if chance were a disobedient servant. This humility can make responsibility more bearable. If only the whole outcome counts, then every action is already crushed by what it cannot ensure. If the chosen act counts, then integrity has a place to stand even in uncertainty. Stoicism is demanding because it removes excuses, but it also removes inflated burdens that never belonged to the human will. A thought can enter the dark with the force of fact. They do not care. I failed. It is over. I will never repair this. The sentence arrives already dressed as truth. You do not feel as if you are interpreting anything. You feel as if reality itself has spoken. Epictetus is careful at exactly that point. In the Enchiridion, he advises the student to say to a harsh appearance, "You are only an appearance, and not absolutely the thing you appear to be." That is not positive thinking. It is not pretending the silence does not hurt, or the loss did not happen, or the danger is imaginary. It is the pause before assent. Assent is the moment the mind gives an impression the authority of judgment. An impression arrives. The phone is silent. The face looked cold. The result was not what you hoped. Then the mind adds a verdict. Silence means rejection. Coldness means contempt. The result means I am worthless. Stoicism does not say the first layer is nothing, it asks whether the second layer has been inspected. This is why the famous line from Enchiridion 5 must be handled with care. People are disturbed not by things alone, but by the principles and notions they form concerning things. If spoken lazily, that line can become cruel. It can sound as if pain is your fault. It can sound as if events do not wound. That is not the version worth keeping. The serious version is more demanding and less insulting. It says that judgment participates in suffering. The event may hurt, the loss may be real, the silence may matter, but the mind often adds a story that multiplies the wound. It turns uncertainty into condemnation. It turns delay into abandonment. It turns error into identity. Then it grips the judgment because releasing the judgment feels like releasing the seriousness of what happened. You may know this in your own body. The fact is one thing. The verdict is another. The fact says, someone has not answered. The verdict says, you are disposable. The fact says, you made a mistake. The verdict says, you are the mistake. The fact says, something ended. The verdict says, nothing good can begin. These are not the same. They feel fused only because assent has already happened. Stoic practice is not the removal of feeling. It is the refusal to let every feeling become law. A shadow in the room should not be ignored, but it also should not immediately be treated as a person standing there. The pause matters because it gives the mind a chance to ask, what do I actually know? What have I added? And what act remains mine? This is especially important when holding feels moral. You may think, if I stop believing this verdict, I am excusing the harm. If I stop calling myself ruined, I am minimizing the mistake. If I stop rehearsing the worst meaning, I am betraying the seriousness of the event. But a judgment can be severe and still false. A verdict can be punishing and still not just. The Stoic discipline of assent protects a space between appearance and consent. In that space, responsibility can survive without panic. You can admit harm without adding that the harm defines the whole self. You can see danger without surrendering the mind to every image danger produces. You can feel grief without letting grief command metaphysics, memory, and tomorrow all at once. This does not make the night easy. Sometimes the appearance returns again and again. Stoicism does not promise that one clear thought will silence it. It asks for repetition of a different kind. Not the repetition of the wound, but the repetition of inquiry. Is this the thing itself? Is this a judgment? Have I assented too quickly? What is still mine to do? The pause is not weakness. It is the place where the hand stops tightening around a verdict long enough to notice that the verdict was never the whole truth. Not every thought deserves the authority of fact. There is a practical humility here as well. Sometimes the first verdict will later prove partly right. The silence may really contain distance. The mistake may really have consequences. Stoicism is not asking you to replace every harsh thought with a soft one. It is asking you not to decide the whole case at midnight, with only fear as counsel. Assent delayed is not truth denied. It is the mind admitting that an appearance is not yet the whole world. Assent is not a word most people use in the dark, but the experience is familiar. A thought knocks, and the mind opens the door before asking who is there. The thought says, "This proves you failed." The thought says, "This silence is contempt." The thought says, "This ending means everything before it was false." Assent is the moment the mind lets that visitor sit in the highest chair. Epictetus asks for one breath before the chair is offered. That breath can protect responsibility. If you believe too quickly that repair is impossible, you may not repair. If you believe too quickly that you are innocent, you may not apologize. If you believe too quickly that you are condemned, you may punish yourself instead of learning. Inspecting the impression does not make you passive. It may be the very thing that allows a better action to appear. So the Stoic pause is not a retreat from truth. It is respect for truth. The first version of a thought is often mixed with fear, pride, memory, and bodily fatigue. Night adds shadows. A disciplined mind does not have to deny the thought. It can say, Wait. Show me what you are. Then I will decide whether to believe you. Assent is difficult because the mind often gives it before we notice. A face falls and the story begins. A sentence is delayed and the interpretation is already standing there. A plan fails and the verdict starts speaking in the first person. Stoicism asks for a small interruption in that speed. It asks the mind to catch the moment when the appearance becomes a ruler. This interruption is not a trick for pleasant emotion. Sometimes the inspected judgment is still grave. Perhaps the silence really does signal distance. Perhaps the mistake really does require repair. Perhaps the loss really is irreversible. But even then, the mind can stop adding claims it does not know. It can stop turning pain into prophecy. It can stop making one event into a total sentence about the self. That is the hidden link between judgment and holding. Many grips are grips on meanings, not facts. You are not only holding the unanswered message, you are holding the meaning that silence has already been assigned. You are not only holding the mistake, you are holding the identity the mistake seems to prove. You are not only holding the loss, you are holding the demand that the loss explain the whole shape of life. Epictetus is severe because he wants the mind to recover its part in the process, not to blame itself for pain, but to stop giving every painful appearance a throne. The hand loosens a little when a thought is allowed to be a thought before it is crowned as truth. A verdict can be especially seductive when it gives a clean identity. Failed, rejected, betrayed, forgotten, unsafe. The words are painful, but they are also simple. They end inquiry. A more exact account may be messier. One thing failed, one person withdrew, one trust was harmed, one danger is possible. Messier truths are harder to hold, but they are less tyrannical than total verdicts. Epictetus asks for that messier honesty. The appearance may contain something real, but it may not contain everything it claims. The discipline is not to soften truth until it becomes pleasant. It is to refuse exaggeration even when exaggeration feels emotionally convincing. A mind that can do that has already loosened one strand of the knot. One fear remains after the Stoic boundary is drawn. If I release the outcome, will I stop trying? If I stop possessing the result in my mind, will I become careless? That fear is understandable because many people use acceptance as a softer name for resignation. They stop acting and call it wisdom. Stoicism cannot be reduced to that. Epictetus does not remove action from life. Marcus Aurelius does not remove duty from life. The Stoic question is not how to live without obligations. It is how to act without pretending that obligation gives ownership over everything that follows. Return to the bathhouse. You go knowing there may be noise, theft, rude people, broken order. The point is not that a bathhouse equals a grave injustice. The point is the structure of expectation. If the world contains disorder, the wise person does not make inner steadiness depend on the fantasy that disorder will politely disappear. One still goes, one still acts, but one remembers the deeper aim. That deeper aim is not control of the whole scene. It is the character of one's own action within the scene. You can enter a conversation with patience. You cannot own the other person's defensiveness. You can make restitution. You cannot own whether trust returns on your preferred schedule. You can do the next honest thing. You cannot own the story others will tell about it. Marcus helps here because he is often misread as a private comfort writer. The meditations are private notes, but they are notes written by someone carrying public burden. His acceptance is not the acceptance of a person with nothing to do. It is the acceptance of a person who must act amid illness, politics, duty, loss, and the ordinary resistance of human beings. That is why Stoic release can be severe without being passive. It cuts the bond between duty and possession. Duty says, do the act that reason and role require. Possession says, the world must answer in the way that proves my act was worth doing. Duty can survive without possession. Possession often exhausts duty by making every result a referendum on the self. Epictetus gives the harder version in Enchiridion 8. Do not demand that events happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen. This can sound unbearable if it is rushed. It does not mean approve everything. It does not mean injustice becomes good because it occurred. It means that once reality has arrived, the first waste of agency is the demand that its arrival be untrue. Acceptance of occurrence is not consent to meaning. The message was sent, the reply came, the diagnosis was given, the choice was made. The clock cannot be argued backward. If the mind spends the whole night demanding that the fact not be a fact, it has less strength for the act that may still be required. Stoicism asks you to stop rowing against yesterday's river so that tomorrow's oar can be held honestly. You can see how this protects the phrase not giving up. Giving up would be abandoning the act that still belongs to you. Letting go, in the Stoic sense, is abandoning the false ownership of what never did. The difference may be small in language and enormous in life. Maybe the act is an apology. Maybe it is silence because speech would only be performance tonight. Maybe it is preparation. Maybe it is endurance. Maybe it is accepting that the result will not be known before morning. Stoicism is not asking you to feel triumphant about any of this. It is asking you to place your strength where strength can actually become action. The work may remain. The grip changes. A hand can still do its duty after it stops trying to hold the whole world closed inside it. The same distinction can protect love. You can love someone and still not own their healing, their answer, their timing, or their understanding of you. You can be responsible toward them without becoming responsible for the entire weather inside them. This is painful because love wants to help, but help becomes confused when it imagines itself sovereign. Stoic duty is humbler. It does the faithful act and releases the throne. Duty also has a rhythm. There is a time to prepare, a time to speak, a time to wait, and a time to stop rehearsing. Outcome possession destroys that rhythm because it treats every moment as if action must continue inside the mind. Even after the letter is written, worry keeps writing invisible drafts. Even after the apology is made, worry keeps demanding control over forgiveness. Stoicism gives the act an ending so the next act can be met when it actually arrives. Marcus Aurelius is useful here because he does not make philosophy a private bedroom comfort only. He keeps returning to the work of being human among others. That work includes patience, justice, restraint, and service. If your reading of acceptance makes you less honest, less just, or less willing to do the task before you, it has drifted from the stronger Stoic line. Acceptance should remove fantasy, not duty. Someone afraid of giving up can hear this as a safeguard. Release the imagined ownership, then look again. Is there a real act left? If yes, keep it. If no, maybe what remains is only the mind's habit of pulling after the cord has left its reach. The hardest duties are often those that do not pay back quickly. You may do the right thing and receive no reassurance. You may speak honestly and be misunderstood. You may work carefully and still watch the result pass through hands, systems, moods, and accidents beyond your reach. If duty depends on immediate confirmation, duty becomes fragile. It keeps asking the world to applaud before it will remain upright. Marcus is valuable here because his notes repeatedly return to the ordinary labor of being human among difficult humans. He reminds himself to rise, to meet meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial people, and still not be made like them. Even without leaning on a single polished quotation, the pattern is clear. The task is action according to one's role and reason, not ownership of the human weather that follows. This gives a different texture to letting go. It is not a sigh that says, nothing can be done. It is a firm inward distinction that says, this is the act, and that is the answer of the world. The act must be as clean as I can make it. The answer cannot be chained to my wrist. If it comes badly, I may need another act, but I do not need to spend the night pretending that dread is a form of labor. There is tenderness in that, though it does not first sound tender. The mind is spared from impossible employment. It is no longer hired to manage every future response. It can return to the smaller, harder, more truthful work of choosing well where choice still lives. This distinction helps when love and work both demand patience. The gardener can water, prune, protect, and wait. The gardener cannot command growth by staring at the soil all night. The image is simple, but the Stoic lesson is severe. Human beings often keep staring at the soil of outcomes, then call the staring devotion. Duty may actually require rest, because tomorrow's act needs a less exhausted instrument. That should not be turned into a promise that rest will come easily. It may not, but it can still be true that continued mental possession is not service. Sometimes the most responsible thing before morning is to stop spending yourself on what cannot receive your effort. There is a moment when a true sentence can become a harmful one. Someone is grieving, frightened, or wronged, and another person says, "Just accept it." The words may have a philosophical ancestor, but in that room they can feel like abandonment. They can make pain sound like a failure of discipline. Stoicism has to be tested there. If it cannot survive the test, it becomes a mask for coldness. Epictetus sometimes speaks with an austerity that should not be softened beyond recognition. In Enchiridion 11, he tells the student not to say, "I have lost it," but "I have returned it." Applied to possessions, status, or fortune, the exercise can loosen the fantasy of ownership. Applied carelessly to grief, it can sound brutal. The honest way to use that passage is not to turn it into a line for someone else's wound. It is an inward exercise about possession and mortality. Even then, it is hard. It asks whether the things we love were ever ours in the absolute way the mind imagines. It asks whether loss exposes a false claim that was hidden inside affection. But it must not be used to make sorrow look stupid. Enchiridion 16 creates another difficulty. Epictetus speaks of sympathizing with another person's grief outwardly while not being carried away inwardly. There is wisdom in refusing to drown with every wave around you, but there is also danger. The line can be misused by someone who wants the appearance of compassion without the vulnerability of it. This is where Stoicism needs its own repair. The repair is not to abandon the distinction between event and judgment. That distinction remains valuable. The repair is to remember that human beings are not abstract exercises. Pain has a social life. Grief asks for presence. Injustice asks for response. A philosophy that teaches steadiness must not become a permission slip for emotional absence. You can keep the Stoic boundary without becoming stone. You can refuse to add a false verdict to pain while still admitting that pain deserves tenderness. You can say, "This event is not fully mine to command," without saying, "This event does not matter." You can say, "My judgment participates in suffering," without saying, "Suffering is only my judgment." That difference matters because many people turn strength into performance. They want to appear above injury. They want to prove that nothing can touch them. But Marcus Aurelius is not a productivity influencer, and Epictetus is not offering a costume for invulnerability. Stoicism is a discipline of reasoned agency under conditions we do not own. It is not the elimination of human warmth. So when acceptance sounds cruel, slow down. Ask what the sentence is doing. Is it helping the mind stop demanding ownership over what has happened? Or is it helping someone avoid the cost of compassion? Is it clarifying the act that remains? Or is it closing the door on another person's pain? The same word can steady or wound depending on the hand that holds it. This keeps the larger question honest. Letting go is not automatically wise because it uses calm language. A person can call numbness acceptance. A person can call fear reason. A person can call withdrawal peace. Stoicism itself gives tools to challenge that because it asks for honest judgment, not theatrical hardness. Acceptance must preserve humanity. If it does not, it has become avoidance with a Roman accent. The next turn begins from a different problem. Sometimes the issue is not what we claim as ours. Sometimes the hand is simply pulling too hard. If you have used hardness against yourself, this boundary matters. You do not have to speak to your own pain as if you were trying to win an argument. The mind can be trained without being insulted. A judgment can be examined without calling the heart foolish. Stoicism at its best is not contempt for tenderness. It is the attempt to keep tenderness from being ruled by false verdicts and impossible claims. Austere teachings often need a human temperature. The line "returned, not lost" may train a mind inside a philosophical exercise, but grief is not a classroom object to be handled with clever fingers. If something beloved is gone, the first honest response may be sorrow. Stoicism does not become deeper by rushing past that sorrow. It becomes deeper only if it can sit near sorrow and still ask where judgment has added unnecessary torment. This distinction matters for injustice too. Acceptance of an event means admitting that the event has happened. It does not mean the event is morally acceptable. If a harm calls for witness, repair, protest, or protection, Stoic clarity should make those acts cleaner, not erase them. The will cannot undo the fact of arrival. It may still be responsible for the answer given after arrival. So the cold version of Stoicism is not the version needed tonight. The needed version is exact and humane. It honors pain without giving every painful verdict the status of truth. It honors duty without pretending duty controls fate. It honors acceptance without using acceptance to hide from what remains to be done. Grief is the place where bad Stoicism exposes itself most quickly. If a person uses the language of return to make loss tidy, the sentence has lost its soul. To say that what was loved was never possessed absolutely may be a profound meditation. To say it as a shortcut over another person's tears is a failure of judgment. The same doctrine can be medicine or injury depending on timing, humility, and love. This is why the Stoic distinction between inner and outer life cannot become contempt for emotion. Feelings are not commands, but they are also not rubbish. They carry information, attachment, history, and the body's honest response to change. Stoicism asks us not to be ruled by every wave. It does not require us to pretend there is no sea. The objection also protects the whole comparative journey from triumphalism. No single tradition gets to declare victory over the human condition. Stoicism clarifies ownership, but it can become hard if detached from compassion. Taoism clarifies force, but it can become evasive if detached from courage. Buddhism clarifies clinging, but it can become cold if detached from care. Each teaching needs the humility to know how it can be misused. So if acceptance is spoken tonight, let it be spoken inwardly and carefully, not as a command to be untouched, not as a dismissal of what happened, more like a hand placing the fact on the table and refusing to add a false verdict to it. The fact may still hurt. The hand does not have to lie. The harsh application often comes from impatience with ambiguity. People want philosophy to make pain clean, but grief, anger, and disappointment are rarely clean. A wise Stoic reading does not demand that they become clean before they are allowed to exist. It asks whether, inside the unclean feeling, the mind can avoid adding false ownership and false verdict. That is a slower and kinder discipline. It lets a person say, "This hurts," and also, "I do not know yet what this means." It lets someone grieve without turning grief into identity. It lets someone resist harm without pretending that resistance controls all results. Acceptance becomes cruel when it closes the heart. It becomes useful when it stops the heart from being ruled by fantasy. You may know the kind of effort that stops helping. At first it feels responsible. You explain one more time. You check one more time. You plan one more version. You push the conversation past its natural edge because the result matters. Then something changes. The action becomes tighter. The other person withdraws. The work becomes brittle. The mind becomes smaller. Taoism enters through that change. Lao Tzu is not asking whether an outcome belongs to your will in the Stoic sense. He is asking what happens when the will insists on one shape so strongly that it can no longer feel the living situation. The Tao Te Ching gives this problem a quiet but radical name, Wu Wei. Wu Wei is often translated as non-action or non-forcing, and the first phrase can mislead badly. The Tao Te Ching does not praise dead passivity. In one early passage, the sage acts through Wu Wei and the work is accomplished. Something happens. The task is not abandoned. What disappears is the anxious claim, the forcing, the need to make action into a monument to the self. This distinction is easy to lose at night. The mind says, if more pressure has not worked, use more pressure. If the reply has not come, check again. If sleep has not come, try harder to sleep. If reconciliation has not happened, rehearse the perfect speech until the speech becomes a weapon against rest. The will believes intensity proves loyalty. Taoism asks whether intensity has become the very thing distorting the act. Desire narrows perception. That does not mean desire is evil. It means that when one outcome becomes the only acceptable shape, the room shrinks. A silence becomes a sign. A delay becomes an insult. A different path becomes invisible because the will keeps shining its lamp inches from one spot. Laozi contrasts seeing through desire and seeing without desire. The point is not moral purity, it is vision. Another passage in the Tao Te Ching warns that strong colors, sounds, tastes, racing, and rare goods can disorder the mind. You do not need to treat this as a scolding of ordinary pleasure. Hear it as a warning about capture. When the mind is captured, it cannot read the situation. It mistakes stimulation for importance and fixation for clarity. Then comes the overfilled vessel and the over-sharpened point. Fill something to the brim and it cannot be safely carried. Sharpen a point past its proper edge and it cannot last. This is one of the plainest Taoist images for letting go without giving up. The problem is not effort. The problem is excess that destroys usefulness. In human terms, more explaining can damage trust. More checking can damage rest. More control can damage skill. More pressure can make the conversation too narrow for truth to enter. The hand thinks it is helping the knot. The knot knows otherwise. Zhuangzi adds another face to this through the tradition of skill. The skilled person is not careless. A craftsperson, swimmer, musician, or butcher does not succeed by becoming limp. They succeed through trained responsiveness. Attention is present, but rigid self-conscious forcing has lessened. The action fits the grain. This is why Taoist release can be demanding. It may require more sensitivity, not less. It may ask you to stop imposing the plan that made you feel safe. It may ask you to wait, to listen, to move around resistance, to let timing matter. None of that is collapse. It is action that has stopped fighting the texture of the real. So the Taoist question for the night is simple and hard. Has my trying become part of what is damaging this? If the answer is yes, the next move may not be more force. It may be a different quality of action. Sometimes the hand is not weak, it is too tight. The shift from ownership to force can be felt in the hand itself. In the Stoic knot, the hand claims the far end. In the Taoist knot, the hand damages what is nearby, pulling wrongly. That means the Taoist question is often more embodied. How hard is the voice? How tight is the face? How narrow has attention become? The body may reveal coercion before the argument admits it. Force often feels righteous because it has a goal. The goal may be repair, sleep, excellence, truth, or love. Because the goal is good, the hand assumes every increase of pressure is also good. Laozi's warning cuts through that assumption. A good aim can be carried badly. A true sentence can be spoken with a force that makes it impossible to hear. A loving concern can become control. A plan meant to serve life can become a little prison. The Taoist question is not anti-effort, it is anti-blindness. Effort should still be able to feel the material it touches. When effort no longer senses timing, resistance, fatigue, silence, and proportion, it becomes blunt. Wu Wei points toward action that has not lost touch. It is not absence from the world. It is participation without the extra violence of a self that must force reality into its chosen outline. At night, this can be as simple as noticing that the next push has no new wisdom in it. It is only the old push with more fear behind it. If that is true, loosening may be the first intelligent act the hand has made in hours. Force also flatters the self. It lets the mind feel active even when the action is no longer skillful. There is a strange comfort in intensity. You can say, at least I am doing something. You can measure effort by strain, sincerity by exhaustion, commitment by the inability to stop. Taoism is dangerous to that comfort because it asks whether the something being done still belongs to wisdom. The Tao Te Ching repeatedly distrusts excess. Too much display, too much fullness, too much sharpening, too much claiming. These are not only moral warnings, they are observations about function. A thing pushed beyond its proper measure stops serving its purpose. A will that cannot loosen stops receiving information. It has already decided what the world must become, so it cannot hear what the world is saying. This is especially clear in speech. A sentence can begin as repair and end as pressure. One more explanation might be honest. 10 more explanations may be an attempt to force another person into the role your fear requires. At that point, the words no longer carry only meaning, they carry demand. The demand may be understandable. It may also be damaging. Wu Wei asks for a different courage. The courage to let timing matter. The courage to stop using strain as proof. The courage to act without the inner shout that says the action must conquer. It is hard because it removes the intoxicating feeling of force. But if force has become the knot, losing that intoxication may be the beginning of skill. Force also loves urgency. It says there is no time to feel the situation, there is only time to push. But many ruined actions were not ruined by lack of care. They were ruined because care became hurried and deaf. Laozi's suspicion of overfilling and over-sharpening is a suspicion of urgency that has lost proportion. The Taoist listener can ask a bodily question: am I still in contact with what is happening, or only with what I demand? Contact notices tone, timing, fatigue, and resistance. Demand notices only compliance or refusal. When demand replaces contact, action grows stupid even if the goal remains good. Non-forcing returns intelligence to the hand. Water is easy to romanticize, so it has to be kept concrete. Laozi's water does not float through life as a mood. In the Tao Te Ching, the highest excellence is like water because water benefits things and does not compete for the high place. It goes low, it yields, it reaches where rigid force cannot. None of this makes it powerless. You can feel why that image matters if you equate strength with visible pressure. A hard voice seems strong, a fixed plan seems strong. A hand that refuses to loosen seems strong, but some forms of strength lose contact with what they touch. They make a relationship into a contest, a task into a proof of identity, a night into a battlefield against itself. Water does not give up by not gripping. It continues. It finds the hollow. It waits at the stone. It wears down what cannot be defeated by one strike. It benefits without needing applause from the bank. That is not the same as surrender. It is a different imagination of action. Tao Te Ching 10 speaks of producing and nourishing without claiming, acting without boasting, leading without controlling. The words are quiet, but they cut into a common human habit. We often want our good acts to remain ours after they leave us. We want the help to prove our goodness. We want the result to point back and say, "This was yours." Taoism loosens the claiming inside action. This is different from the Stoic boundary, though they can touch. Stoicism says the outcome is not yours to possess. Taoism notices the way claiming itself can make action heavier. You may do the right thing and then grip it as achievement, status, proof, leverage. The act may have helped, but the grip around it becomes another knot. A later passage in the Tao Te Ching gives one of the gentlest and most practical teachings in the whole tradition. A wheel is useful because of the empty hub. A vessel is useful because of the space inside it. A room is useful because of the empty place that can be entered. Emptiness is not nothing, it is what allows function. That matters in the hour when every space has been filled by the will. Every silence is interpreted. Every pause is occupied. Every future possibility is crowded by one desired outcome. The mind thinks release means deletion, but Taoism suggests that release may be the space an action needs in order to work. A cup full of itself cannot receive anything. Think of a difficult conversation. If every pause is filled by defense, nothing new can enter. Think of a decision. If every possibility is judged only by whether it protects one preferred identity, the decision cannot breathe. Think of sleep itself. The more the will tries to seize it, the farther it often moves. The problem is not that rest is unimportant. The problem is that seizure is the wrong relation to it. Water offers humility without self-erasure. It takes the low place, but that does not mean tolerating harm or allowing injustice to pass unchallenged. This point must be clear. Taoist yielding is not advice to endure abuse or to let cruelty have its way. It is a question about fit, timing, and force. Sometimes the fitted action is firm, sometimes it is refusal, sometimes it is departure. The difference is that the act is not driven by panic's need to dominate the scene. Zhuangzi's spirit hovers here too. Ease is not stupidity, wandering is not vacancy. The person who moves with things has not abandoned discernment. They have stopped making the self the hammer that treats every problem as a nail. So when you ask whether letting go is giving up, water gives a strange answer. It says the hand may loosen and the action may continue. It says a thing can yield and still arrive. It says the softest movement may be the one that has stopped wasting itself on display. Not everything useful is something you can hold. Not everything strong announces itself by force. The body can soften without abandoning the task. Water also refuses the vanity of being seen as strong. A hard will often want witnesses. It wants to be recognized as the one who tried, endured, pushed, stayed awake, carried the burden. Water does not ask to be admired for its effort. It benefits, moves, enters, and leaves. That humility can feel like a loss to the ego, but it may be a gain for the action itself. Water also teaches that power need not always keep its original shape. A rigid will treats changed conditions as insult. Water treats changed conditions as information. If the path is blocked, it gathers. If a channel opens, it moves. If a vessel receives it, it takes the form of the vessel without becoming the vessel. That is not weakness. It is the strength of not needing one shape in order to remain itself. A human life needs some of that strength. A conversation changes, a body changes, a project changes, the person you love changes, you change. Hardness may protect one promise for a while, but if hardness cannot adapt, it eventually protects the shell after the living thing has moved. Laozi's water asks whether fidelity might sometimes require flexibility rather than pressure. This is not a soft excuse for having no principles. Water has nature. It moves downward. It nourishes. It persists. Taoist yielding does not mean becoming whatever fear demands. It means meeting the real situation rather than fighting a private picture of how the situation should have been. Water also refuses a certain kind of pride. It does not need the high place in order to be effective. Human action often wants the high place, even when it says it wants only the good. We want to be seen as the one who fixed it, the one who endured, the one who was right, the one who cared more. That need can attach itself to noble acts and make them heavy. Laozi's low place is not humiliation. It is freedom from the need to turn every action into a statue of the self. In practice, this might mean doing something good and not making the other person carry your need to be thanked. It might mean helping without turning help into ownership. It might mean stepping back from a conflict not because you are afraid, but because victory has become too central to your identity. The empty hub and empty room deepen that lesson. A life with no emptiness cannot receive. A conversation with no pause cannot listen. A mind with no unclaimed space cannot learn. We often fear emptiness because it feels like lack. Taoism asks us to notice that some emptiness is the condition of use. The cup must not be full of itself, so water is not a decoration here. It is an argument against the belief that only hard pressure counts as care. It moves without clinging to shape. It serves without needing to possess the result. It can be gentle and persistent at once. When the hand learns from water, it does not vanish. It stops confusing tightness with strength. Water is also free from resentment about the low place. Human pride often treats the low place as humiliation. Laozi treats it as power of another kind. To go low may mean to learn, to wait, to listen, to serve, or to move where pride cannot move. This is not self-erasure if truth and safety remain intact. It is the refusal to make status the measure of action. The night mind may need that refusal because so much gripping is about rank inside an invisible story. Who was right? Who cared more? Who lost? Who should have answered? Water does not enter that courtroom. It keeps moving according to its nature. A person cannot become water, but a person can sometimes stop demanding the high place before any action feels real. Sometimes failure makes the will more aggressive. The method is not working, so the mind intensifies the method. It explains harder, it plans harder, it watches harder. It sharpens the same point until the point becomes too thin to use. Lao Tzu's warning about over-sharpening is not against care, it is against excess that destroys the instrument. A blade can be made keen, but if sharpening becomes obsession, the tool is damaged. A vessel can be filled, but if fullness becomes the aim, it cannot be carried. The Tao Te Ching does not mock effort. It warns that effort has a threshold. You know this threshold in ordinary life. More explaining can make trust worse because the other person no longer hears care, only pressure. More checking can make rest worse because the mind is trained to keep returning to alarm. More preparation can make the work worse because nothing is allowed to be simple, rough, or alive. The effort began as service, then it became interference. This is one of the hardest distinctions because giving up and changing method can look similar from the outside. You stop sending messages. Are you abandoning the relationship or stopping the panic that made speech untrue? You stop forcing a decision tonight. Are you avoiding responsibility or allowing enough space for a real decision tomorrow? Taoism does not answer by surface appearance. It asks whether the action still fits. Zhuangzi's skill stories are useful because skill shows attention without strain. A musician who grips too hard loses the music. A swimmer who fights every movement of the water exhausts the body. A craftsperson who attacks the material instead of sensing its seams wastes force. These images are not invitations to carelessness. They show a trained ease that knows more than brute insistence. Wu Wei, heard this way, is not the absence of effort. It is effort no longer obsessed with itself. It is action in which the hand feels the chord instead of only commanding it. It is the difference between listening and waiting only for your turn to force the result. It is the difference between responding to reality and arguing with reality while calling the argument responsibility. There is a danger here, and Taoism has to face it. Non-forcing can be misused. A person can call fear patience. They can call avoidance timing. They can say they are following the grain of things when they are really refusing a difficult act. This is why letting go cannot be judged by calm language alone. The test is responsibility. If non-forcing leaves you more truthful, more responsive, more able to do the honest act at the proper time, then it may be wisdom. If it leaves you conveniently absent from the duty that remains, then it has become a disguise. Lao Tzu does not give the self an elegant excuse to disappear. At night, the Taoist test can be merciful because it does not demand a final rule. It asks, would another push help, or would it only tighten the knot? The answer may differ by situation. Sometimes you must speak. Sometimes you must stop speaking until speech is no longer a weapon. Sometimes you must work. Sometimes you must put down the work because exhaustion is now making it worse. This can feel frightening because force gives the illusion of control. Even painful effort feels like something to hold. A softer action may feel too exposed. But the Tao Te Ching keeps returning to the power of what does not need to dominate in order to be real. The same hand can help or tighten. The same effort can serve or interfere. When trying becomes obstacle, the release is not abandonment of the aim. It is the release of the strain that has begun to betray the aim. Even then, another knot remains. The will may stop forcing and still cling. It may stop pushing the world and still demand that the world become permanent, safe, and mine. There is a small mercy in this diagnosis. If trying has become the obstacle, then failure is not always proof of personal inadequacy. Sometimes the method has simply outrun the moment. Sometimes the will has used the wrong instrument. Sometimes the situation needs a different touch. Taoism gives the tired person permission to examine the quality of effort, rather than condemning the self for not producing the desired result. One sign of obstructive trying is that the aim gets replaced by the proof of trying. You wanted understanding, but now you mostly want evidence that you explained enough. You wanted repair, but now you mostly want relief from guilt. You wanted good work, but now you mostly want proof that you are not failing. The original aim may still be worthy. The effort around it has become crowded with self-defense. Taoist ease cuts through that crowding. The skilled person in the Zhuangzi lane is not thinking, how do I prove I am skillful at every second? That kind of self-display would ruin the skill. The action works because attention is with the action, not trapped in the self-image of the actor. When the will tries to watch itself winning, it stops feeling the seam in front of it, so the obstacle may not be effort itself. It may be effort carrying too much identity. If loosening returns attention to the actual task, then release has served responsibility. If loosening merely protects pride from risk, then it has not. The moment effort becomes obstacle is rarely announced. It arrives quietly. The same act that helped yesterday begins to harm today. The same question that clarified yesterday begins to harass today. The same vigilance that protected you once begins to keep the body from any rest, because the act once had value. The mind resists noticing the change. Taoism is helpful because it treats situations as living, not static. The proper action is not fixed by the ego's first plan. It has to answer the shape of what is happening now. Zhuangzi's world is full of shifting perspectives and unexpected usefulness. A rigid will misses that. It keeps applying yesterday's instrument to today's seam. This does not mean every obstacle is a sign to stop. Sometimes resistance means the work is hard and must continue. Sometimes a difficult conversation must not be abandoned simply because it is uncomfortable. The Taoist test is subtler. Is the effort becoming more perceptive or less? Is it opening possibilities or closing them? Is it making contact or only repeating the self? At night you may not know the full answer, but you can often feel whether another repetition would be honest. Another message may carry care, or it may carry panic. Another hour of work may be diligence, or it may be fear of being seen as unfinished. Another rehearsal may prepare truth, or it may deepen the groove of resentment. The hand can ask before it pulls again. A useful sign is whether the next attempt has a new relation to reality. If it brings new information, a different tone, a better time, or a clearer act, it may be effort. If it brings only more intensity to the same blocked gesture, it may be obstruction. The difference is not always obvious, but it can be felt with practice. Taoism trusts that practice because it does not separate wisdom from responsiveness. The world is not a dead object waiting for the will. It has patterns, limits, openings and closures. The person who can feel those patterns is not less serious than the person who keeps striking the same place. They may be the only one still listening. There is a form of holding deeper than force. You do not only want something, you need it to stay. You need it to answer. You need it to return, to mean what you hoped it meant, to secure something inside you. The object may be reasonable, the desire may be human. The suffering begins when the desire hardens into a demand for guarantee. Buddhism enters there. The Four Noble Truths, as given in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, begin with suffering or stress, then name its origin in craving. Craving makes for further becoming. It reaches, repeats, seeks, and fastens. The third truth speaks of cessation through fading, relinquishment, release, and letting go of that craving. The fourth truth joins this to the Noble Eightfold Path. That path matters because it protects Buddhism from cheap release. The teaching is not, say the word, let go and feel better. It is a discipline of view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Even if those terms are not unfolded as a list, their presence means release is ethical training and clear seeing, not a mood. The first misunderstanding must be corrected early. Buddhism does not say caring is the wound, it names craving and clinging. You can care for a person without trying to make that person the owner of your safety. You can care about a duty without demanding that the duty provide a permanent identity. You can love what changes without forcing it to become a guarantee against change. A hand can hold carefully, a fist cannot. That is the difference between care and clinging. Care attends, clinging demands, care responds to what is there. Clinging insists that what is there become mine, stay mine, and prove me secure. The object may be precious, the grip is still costly. This is why suffering can begin before loss. You do not have to lose the thing yet. You only have to feel that it might change. A mood shifts and the mind panics. A body ages and the self feels betrayed. A relationship breathes differently and the hand tightens. A role becomes uncertain and identity starts shaking. Clinging suffers because it is already fighting impermanence. The Four Noble Truths do not require you to deny the human pain of this. They ask you to look closely at the extra demand. Wanting a reply is one thing. Needing the reply to prove you are safe from abandonment is another. Wanting health is one thing. Needing the body to promise permanence is another. Wanting recognition is one thing. Needing recognition to create a self that cannot be questioned is another. This does not make desire evil in some simple moral sense. The Buddhist language of craving is more precise than that. Craving is thirst. It is the movement that says, if I can have this, keep this, become this, escape this, then the instability will end. But the world it reaches toward is made of unstable things. So the thirst is never finally satisfied by the object it chooses. You can hear how different this is from Stoicism and Taoism. Stoicism asks whether the outcome is yours. Taoism asks whether force is distorting the act. Buddhism asks what demand for permanence has been placed inside the desire. The same late-night problem may need all three questions, but they do not ask the same thing. At night, the Buddhist question may sound like this: what am I asking this person, result, memory, feeling, or future to secure for me? Am I caring for it, or am I asking it to become the proof that I will be safe, permanent, loved, successful, or whole? If the second demand is present, the grip will hurt even before anything is gone. Love is not the same as possession. Care is not the same as craving. And the hand that cannot open may be suffering not only because the world changes, but because it is demanding that change stop being change. The word craving can sound excessive, as if it belongs only to obvious greed. But in Buddhist diagnosis, craving can hide inside ordinary hope. It may be refined, respectable, even tender. I want this person to stay. I want this pain to mean something. I want my life to prove it was not wasted. These are human longings. They become clinging when the mind cannot allow them to remain vulnerable. The Buddhist diagnosis also changes how loss is understood. Loss hurts because something valued is gone or changed. Clinging adds another wound by insisting that the valued thing should have been able to secure the self permanently. The first pain may be unavoidable. The second is built from demand. Buddhism is interested in that demand because it can be seen, trained, and gradually relinquished. This matters when the object of clinging is morally serious. You may cling to justice, to a promise, to a person's recovery, to the hope that your life has meaning. The seriousness of the object does not automatically purify the grip. A noble object can still be held possessively. That is why the tradition does not ask only what you want. It asks how wanting is shaping the mind. If wanting makes the mind more truthful, patient, and ready for right action, it is one thing. If wanting makes the mind demand permanence, identity, and guarantee from what changes, craving has entered. That distinction is subtle, but night is full of subtle knots. Craving also has a future tense. It does not only say, I want this. It says, when I have this, I will be safe. When this person stays, I will be whole. When this pain ends, I will finally be acceptable. When this answer comes, the self will stop trembling. Buddhism hears the bargain and asks whether any impermanent thing can keep it. The bargain is understandable. Human beings look for ground. We want something to hold us. We want love, work, body, memory, and belief to say, "You may rest here forever." But the things we choose are themselves moving. They may be good, they may be worthy of care. They are not permanent ground in the way craving demands. This is why Buddhism can sound severe while actually being precise. It is not scolding you for wanting comfort. It is showing why the chosen form of comfort cannot do the impossible job. If a changing thing is asked to remove the fear of change, suffering has already been planted. The object may not have betrayed you. It may simply be unable to become what craving promised. Then letting go begins to mean something much more exact than emotional release. It means seeing the bargain. It means feeling the thirst without obeying every story thirst tells. It means caring for what is here without secretly demanding that it become an eternal shelter. That is not a quick comfort, it is a clear diagnosis, and sometimes clarity is the first mercy. Clinging also narrows compassion for oneself. When the mind demands guarantee, every uncertainty becomes an accusation. If the person has not answered, you are unsafe. If the body changes, you are betrayed. If the future is unknown, you are failing. Buddhism exposes the demand underneath those accusations. It asks whether uncertainty itself has been treated as an enemy. The answer is not to enjoy uncertainty. That would be another shallow command. The answer is to see that uncertainty is part of the conditions in which care happens. The path trains a person to meet those conditions without making the demand for guarantee the center of the self. That training is long because the demand is old. You can try to command the inner world as if it were property. Stay tender, stop hurting. Remember this without pain. Keep this mood, keep this face, keep this body, keep this version of me. The commands may be silent, but they are there, and they fail again and again. The Anatta Lakkhana Sutta presses on that failure. The Buddha points to form, feeling, perception, fabrications, and consciousness. In ordinary language, he is looking at body, felt tone, recognition, mental formations, and awareness. These are the very materials from which we build the sense of a solid self. Yet they are inconstant. They do not obey the command, "Let this be thus, let this not be thus." That claim can sound frightening if it is made into a shock line. Not self is not a cheap way of saying you do not exist. It is an analysis of ownership. If something is changing, conditioned, and not commandable, in what sense can it honestly be held as mine, myself, what I am? The formula is severe and strangely freeing. This is not mine, this is not myself, this is not what I am. It should not be used as a weapon against pain. If fear arises, the teaching does not say pretend fear is absent. If grief arises, it does not say grief is nothing. It asks whether fear or grief must be owned as identity. Much of what feels like me will not obey like property. A feeling changes before you have finished explaining it. A memory alters as you revisit it. A body ages, tires, hungers, hurts. Attention wanders. Consciousness flickers through different tones. The mind wants to say, all of this is mine in the strongest possible sense. Buddhism asks whether that strongest sense is exactly what makes the grip painful. Impermanence is not only a doctrine about endings, it is present inside every attempt to freeze the living stream. The mind wants the kind sentence to remain exactly as it felt when it first arrived. It wants love to have no weather. It wants the body to be the same body. It wants an identity that cannot be embarrassed by change. Then ordinary change feels like theft. Not self does not make experience unreal. It makes experience unstable as a possession. Mist on glass can be seen. It can matter. It can change the way light enters the room. But it cannot be owned as a wall. In the same way, feelings and thoughts can be known without being made into a fortress of self. This is where the Buddhist account of clinging becomes sharp. Clinging is not simply liking something. It is the mind making the move from experience to mine, from mine to me, from me to must, not change. Once that move happens, the whole world becomes a threat because the whole world changes. You can feel this in small moments. A pleasant state appears, and immediately the mind begins guarding it. A compliment arrives, and the mind tries to build a house there. A painful sentence appears, and the mind says, "This is who I am now." In each case, experience becomes identity too quickly. The phrase, "this is not mine," is not a cold dismissal. It is a loosening of false identity. It can mean, this pain is present, but it does not have to be the whole self. This desire is present, but it does not have to become command. This fear is present, but it does not have to own the night. That kind of release is not easy. It may even feel like a loss before it feels like relief, because the self is used to building itself from the very things that hurt it. Buddhism asks whether the building material was ever stable enough for the job. So the third night test becomes quiet and exact. Am I caring for this, or am I demanding that it secure me? Am I feeling this, or turning it into what I am? Am I meeting change, or asking change to stop being change before I will let the hand open? That vulnerability is why not self can be frightening. The mind wants at least one thing to hold still and say, "Here, this is finally you." Buddhism refuses to grant that fixed object. But refusal is not theft. It may be release from a burden no changing experience could carry. The self that clinging tries to secure is made heavier by every demand for certainty. Loosening that demand can feel like loss before it begins to feel like space. The aggregates named in the sutta can sound technical, but each points towards something intimate. Form is not an abstraction when the body hurts or ages. Feeling is not an abstraction when pleasant, painful, and neutral tones steer the day. Perception is not an abstraction when the mind recognizes a face, a threat, or a memory. Mental formations are not abstractions when habits shape the next reaction. Consciousness is not an abstraction when awareness itself flickers, narrows, and returns. The Buddha's question is radical because it brings the ownership test into every layer. If these things change and cannot be commanded, why demand that they become the permanent owner's house of the self? The demand may be understandable, it may even be universal, but it is unstable. It asks a river to become a stone because the self is afraid of moving. "This is not mine" can then be heard as a release of false demand. It does not make the river vanish. It stops asking the river to perform the work of a wall. The not self-teaching also changes the way pain is held. Pain often says, "Because I am here, I am you." Fear says the same. Desire says the same. Shame is especially persuasive. It does not merely report that something happened, it tries to name the whole person. The Buddhist formula interrupts that naming. The formula does not mean this pain is absent. It does not mean no one is responsible for action. It does not mean life is empty of meaning. It means the experience should not be granted ultimate ownership over identity. It arises, it changes, it can be known. It does not have to become a prison wall. That distinction can be tender in a very quiet way. If sadness is not the whole self, it can be felt without worship. If fear is not the whole self, it can be heard without being crowned. If desire is not the whole self, it can be examined without becoming law. The hand opens not by denying the cord, but by refusing to wrap the cord around the center of being. Impermanence then becomes less like an insult and more like an honest condition. Everything you can point to and experience is moving. That movement may hurt, but the extra wound comes when the mind says, "Moving things must stop moving so that I can finally be secure." Buddhism asks whether another kind of security begins when that impossible demand is seen through. Not self also protects against the opposite mistake, pretending the inner life can be mastered like a possession. A person may try to own calm, own focus, own kindness, own grief, own identity. Then any change becomes failure. The teaching loosens that possession by reminding us that experience is conditioned, shifting, and not fully commandable. This does not make discipline meaningless. It makes discipline less imperial. You can cultivate attention without owning every thought. You can cultivate kindness without controlling every feeling. You can cultivate patience without commanding the body to become serene. Practice works with conditions. Clinging tries to rule them. The difference is enormous. A person may imagine opening the fist and fear that nothing will remain. If I stop clinging, will I stop loving? If I stop identifying with the pain, will I become hollow? If I stop demanding permanence, will life become thin and cold? That fear has to be met honestly, because Buddhism is often misunderstood at exactly this point. Non-clinging is not caring. It is not nihilism. It is not emotional withdrawal with a spiritual name. The Four Noble Truths name craving as the origin of suffering, not compassion, attention, or ethical concern. The Eightfold Path includes speech and action because a life of practice is still a life among beings. This means release has moral shape. If a teaching of non-attachment makes someone less truthful, less kind, less willing to repair harm, or less present to duty, something has gone wrong. Buddhism does not ask the hand to become useless. It asks the hand not to close so tightly that it turns care into possession. Consider the difference in ordinary terms. You can care for someone who is changing. You can sit with their uncertainty, their freedom, their mortality, their difference from you. Or you can cling to them as the answer to your own fear. The first form of care is still vulnerable. It can still hurt, but it does not demand that the other person become a permanent instrument of your security. The same is true with work, reputation, health, and memory. You can care for the body without demanding that the body never age. You can care about good work without demanding that recognition create a permanent self. You can honor a memory without demanding that the past return in order to prove the love was real. This is not soft. It may be harder than clinging. Clinging gives the mind something to squeeze. Non-clinging asks the mind to remain attentive without the illusion of possession. It asks for care without a cage. It asks for tenderness without the command that the world freeze around that tenderness. The nihilism mistake says, if nothing can be possessed forever, nothing matters. But that sentence does not follow. A flower matters partly because it will not stay. A human voice matters partly because it can fall silent. A night matters because it passes. Impermanence can deepen attention rather than cancel it. Buddhism becomes frightening when not self is heard as emptiness in the worst sense, as if there is no one here, nothing to do, nothing to protect. The better reading is more precise. The self you keep trying to secure through changing things is not as solid as craving wants it to be. That does not erase ethical life. It may make ethical life less possessive. The Eightfold Path keeps returning release to conduct. Right speech is not withdrawal. Right action is not indifference. Right effort is not collapse. Right mindfulness is not drifting away from the world. These terms can become formal if recited mechanically, but their ordinary pressure is clear. How you see, speak, act, and attend still matters. So if the hand opens, something remains. It may be the phone call that must be made tomorrow. It may be the boundary that still must be honored. It may be grief that can be felt without being turned into identity. It may be love that does not demand ownership as proof. An open hand can still help. In fact, it may help better because it can feel what is there. A fist mostly feels itself. Care released from possession is not a smaller care. It is care no longer confused with possession. Still, the danger has not disappeared. Even the idea of release can become something the mind grips. A person can cling to non-clinging. A person can use a teaching of letting go to avoid what must be faced. That is why Buddhism gives one more warning before the final comparison. The open hand is not sentimental. It may still set a boundary. It may still say no. It may still leave a harmful place. It may still speak a truth someone dislikes. Care without possessive demand is not softness without shape. It is care no longer demanding possession as its proof. That means it can sometimes be gentler and sometimes firmer than attachment. Attachment often serves fear. Care tries to serve what is true. There is a kind of care that becomes more precise when it stops trying to possess. It can ask, what does this person need, rather than, what do I need this person to be for me? It can ask, what does this moment require, rather than how can this moment guarantee my future? It can ask, what speech is truthful, rather than what speech will secure the outcome I crave. That precision is one reason non-clinging is not indifference. Indifference turns away because the object does not matter. Non-clinging can stay close because the object matters without becoming property. The difference may be invisible from the outside. Inside it is enormous. One says, I will not be touched. The other says, I will be touched without making touch into ownership. This is difficult because ownership feels safer than openness, but safety purchased by clinging is unstable. The changing world cannot keep the bargain. Care without possessive demand does not remove vulnerability. It stops demanding that vulnerability become a crime. Care without possessive demand may even be more faithful because it lets the other thing be itself. Possessive care quietly replaces the beloved with the role the beloved must play for the self. It says, be my proof, my safety, my continuation, my answer. Open care can still ache, but it does not reduce the other to a function of fear. This applies beyond relationships. A vocation can be loved without becoming the whole self. A home can be cherished without being asked to defeat mortality. A belief can guide without becoming a weapon against uncertainty. When clinging loosens, these things may not matter less. They may be seen more accurately because they no longer have to perform impossible metaphysical labor. The path language matters here again. Right speech asks whether words reduce suffering or feed craving. Right action asks whether conduct is clean. Right effort asks whether energy is wise. Mindfulness and concentration ask whether attention can stay with experience without immediately turning it into mine. These are not abstractions when the hand is gripping at night. They are ways care learns not to become a cage, so the fear of emptiness can be answered, but not with a promise that nothing will hurt. What remains after clinging is not guaranteed comfort. What remains is a more honest contact with what is changing. The open hand may feel vulnerable because it is vulnerable, but vulnerability is not the same as defeat, and possession is not the same as love. The path language matters because it keeps care grounded in repeated conduct. A person who claims non-clinging but speaks carelessly has not escaped attachment. They may only be attached to an image of being beyond attachment. A person who claims release but refuses right action has not become free. They have changed vocabulary. Real care is tested in speech, timing, attention, and responsibility. It may be quieter than attachment, but it is not vague. It asks what helps rather than what secures me. It asks what truth requires rather than what will end discomfort fastest. It can stay when staying is right, and leave when leaving is right, without making either movement a performance of spiritual superiority. A wise phrase can be used unwisely. I am letting go can mean clarity. It can also mean I do not want to face this. I accept it can mean the mind has stopped fighting a fact. It can also mean I do not want the cost of action. I am practicing non-attachment can mean clinging has loosened. It can also mean I am becoming unavailable and calling it insight. The Alaggadupama Sutta gives a fierce image for this danger. The Buddha compares a teaching wrongly grasped to a water snake seized by the tail. The snake turns back and bites. The problem is not that the snake was unreal. The problem is the grasp. A teaching meant to liberate can injure when held in the wrong way. That warning belongs at the center of any honest account of letting go. The phrase itself can become another possession. The mind can use it to win an argument, to avoid apology, to dismiss grief, to appear advanced, to leave before responsibility has been met. Then release is not release. It is a more elegant grip. You can see the same danger across all three traditions. Someone can call numbness Stoic because they do not want to feel. Someone can call delay Taoist because they do not want to act. Someone can call distance Buddhist because they do not want to love without control. The vocabulary changes, the avoidance remains. This is why the title has to keep its edge. Letting go is not giving up, but only if the honest act remains. If release removes false ownership, good. If it removes coercive force, good. If it loosens clinging, good. But if it removes truthfulness, courage, compassion, or duty, then the word has been mishandled. The water snake simile is also a warning against turning philosophy into decoration. A line from Epictetus, Lao Tzu, or the Buddha can be beautiful and still be wrongly held. You can use it as a shield against complexity. You can repeat it until it stops questioning you and starts protecting your favorite evasion. That is not wisdom, it is possession with better language. So the honest diagnostic pause matters. Before adopting any teaching of release, ask what responsibility would remain if the performance of gripping stopped. Would I still need to speak? Would I still need to apologize? Would I still need to rest because exhaustion is making me harmful? Would I still need to wait? Would I still need to grieve? Would I still need to stop demanding from another person what no person can guarantee? Notice that this is not a checklist. It is a way of refusing self-deception. The same outward action can be honest in one case and evasive in another. Silence can be patience or punishment. Leaving can be courage or avoidance. Staying can be faithfulness or fear. Letting go can be wisdom or disguise. The traditions do not spare us that ambiguity, they sharpen it. Stoicism asks for honest judgment about what belongs to us. Taoism asks for honest sensitivity to fit and force. Buddhism asks for honest seeing of craving and clinging. None of them gives the ego a safe hiding place if they are held well. Even wisdom can be gripped by the tail. The point is not to collect better phrases. The point is to hold the teaching in a way that makes you more truthful, not less. If the phrase release makes you less willing to see, it has bitten the hand. This warning is useful precisely because these words are attractive at night. Letting go, non-forcing, non-clinging, acceptance, release. Each word can feel like a doorway out of discomfort. But a doorway is not an escape if it leads away from the act that is yours. The water snake simile asks for respect. Do not grab wisdom in panic and then blame wisdom when it bites. The wrong grasp often announces itself by speed. The phrase arrives too quickly. Before the grief has been named, someone says accept it. Before the duty has been examined, someone says go with the flow. Before the wound has been understood, someone says do not attach. Speed can be a sign that the teaching is being used to close the case rather than open it. A true teaching can slow the mind down. It can make the situation more visible. It can reveal the action that remains. It can expose the fantasy in the grip. But if the teaching makes everything instantly convenient, be careful. Convenience is not proof of wisdom. It may be the ego wearing calmer clothes. The water snake simile is useful because it respects danger. Wisdom is not harmless when handled badly. A person can injure themselves with a good doctrine by using it to avoid truth. That warning keeps the final comparison honest. The wrong grasp often feels righteous. That is why it is dangerous. A person rarely says, I am using this teaching to hide. They say, I have understood. I have risen above this. I am no longer attached. The language can sound clean while the heart has simply moved its old fear into a new house. The water snake image refuses that cleanliness. A snake held by the tail is not harmless because the person has good intentions. In the same way, a doctrine held for vanity, escape, or victory can wound even if the doctrine is true. The issue is not only what is believed, it is how belief is held and what it permits the person to avoid seeing. This warning gives humility to the whole journey. If you find the Stoic boundary useful, do not use it to become unreachable. If you find Taoist non-forcing useful, do not use it to baptize hesitation. If you find Buddhist non-clinging useful, do not use it to withdraw warmth from the people and duties that still call your name. Let each teaching question the self that wants to use it. The safest sign is not how peaceful the phrase sounds. It is whether the phrase leaves you more willing to tell the truth. A well-held teaching makes the remaining duty plainer, even when that duty is only to stop pretending. A badly held teaching makes the self harder to question while giving it better words. That is why the hand must notice not only the knot, but also the way it holds the key. A good teaching should make evasion harder, not easier. It should leave you less able to lie elegantly. There is one more safeguard. If a teaching makes you gentler with truth, it is probably being held with more care. If it makes you harsher, more superior, or more eager to escape ordinary obligation, pause. Epictetus, Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi, and the Buddha are not decorations for the ego's favorite exit. They are difficult companions because they keep asking whether the hand is honest. If the phrase letting go makes you more honest, more careful, more able to do what remains, it may be held well. If it makes you proud, absent, or conveniently untouched, the snake is turning. A phrase can become a shield so polished that no one notices it is a shield. I accept it, I am flowing, I am detached. These can be honest sentences. They can also be doors closing. The water snake warning asks the listener to feel the motive under the sentence. Does it make perception wider or smaller? Does it leave conscience awake or conveniently quiet? The warning also keeps the ending honest. It would be easy to end with a beautiful line about opening the hand, but beauty can hide evasion too. The hand must open toward truth, not away from it. If the open hand refuses the task that belongs to it, then it has not opened wisely. It has merely stopped being seen as a fist. Now imagine the hand loosening but not walking away from the table. That image matters. If letting go only meant leaving, the question would be simpler and less honest. The harder question is what remains when the false grip opens. For Stoicism, what remains is duty within the true circle of agency. Epictetus does not ask you to stop acting. He asks you not to confuse your act with the world's answer. Marcus Aurelius does not ask you to disappear from responsibility. He asks you to meet responsibility without demanding that fate become private property. So after Stoic release, you may still need to do the next honest thing. You may still need to prepare, speak, repair, refuse, endure, or decide. What changes is the hidden claim that the outcome must belong to you because you care. The act remains. The possession loosens. For Taoism, what remains is responsiveness. Lao Tzu does not praise an empty refusal to act. In the Tao Te Ching, work can be accomplished without the heavy claim of forcing and boasting. Water moves. The vessel works because of its empty space. The point is not to become absent, but to stop making the self so loud that the situation cannot be heard. So after Taoist release, you may still need action, but action may change its quality. A conversation may need listening rather than another argument. A project may need simpler movement rather than more anxious polishing. A conflict may need firmness without escalation. A knight may need the humility to stop wrestling with what cannot be forced before morning. For Buddhism, what remains is care without possession. The Four Noble Truths do not remove ethical life. The Eightfold Path returns release to seeing, speech, action, effort, and attention. Not self does not mean nothing matters. It means the mind stops demanding that changing things become the owner of identity. So after Buddhist release, you may still love, grieve, help, and protect. You may still feel pain. You may still be called to act. What loosens is the demand that the loved thing become permanent, that the pain become self, that the uncertain future guarantees safety before you can breathe. These three remains are not identical. Duty, wu-wei, and non-clinging belong to different traditions with different roots, but none of them is collapse. Each leaves a form of responsibility intact. The hand opens enough for the cord to move. It does not vanish from the world. This is important because the fear of giving up often comes from imagining only two choices: either grip everything or abandon everything, either control the result or stop caring, either force the outcome or become passive, either cling or become cold. The traditions break that false pair. The Stoic asks, what remains mine when outcome ownership drops? The Taoist asks, what action becomes possible when force stops deafening you? The Buddhist asks, What care remains when clinging no longer demands permanence? These are not slogans, they are different ways of saving responsibility from panic. Some situations still require external action. Philosophy must not be used to soften that fact away. There may be a call to make, a debt to pay, a boundary to keep, a doctor to see, a truth to tell, a rest to take, a goodbye to honor. Letting go of the wrong grip does not erase those things. It may reveal them more clearly. Responsibility can breathe. That is one of the quiet payoffs of release. Not responsibility as a fist around the future. Not responsibility as force against the grain. Not responsibility as clinging to identity. Responsibility as the next honest act, done by a hand that no longer needs to own the whole answer. The three remainders can also correct each other. Stoic duty can keep Taoist waiting from becoming excuse. Taoist responsiveness can keep Stoic duty from becoming rigid. Buddhist non-clinging can keep both from being secretly organized around identity. None of this blends the traditions into one doctrine. It shows why comparison can be useful when the same night contains more than one error of holding. The word responsibility can now become less swollen. It no longer has to mean owning everything, forcing everything, or clinging to everything. It can mean answering for the act that is yours. It can mean adjusting to the grain of what is real. It can mean caring for the changing without demanding possession. This is a quieter responsibility, but not a weaker one. It may be the only kind that can last. The practical difference may be small enough that no one else notices. You still go to work. You still send the message. You still sit with the grief. You still wait for the answer. But inwardly the act is less crowded. It does not have to prove that you control the result. It does not have to overpower the moment. It does not have to turn the beloved thing into property. That inward difference is not a cure. It is a changed relation to the knot. The cord remains visible. The hand remains responsible for how it touches the cord. Responsibility after release may be less dramatic, which is why panic distrusts it. Panic wants a grand gesture. It wants the total fix, the final message, the decisive proof. The next honest act may be small, a truthful sentence, a night of not making things worse, a boundary held without hatred, a plan adjusted because the old plan had become force. Stoicism, Taoism and Buddhism each protect that smallness in a different way. Stoicism says the act does not need to own the outcome to be real. Taoism says the act does not need to dominate the situation to be effective. Buddhism says the act does not need to secure the self forever to be meaningful. These are different claims, but together they loosen the fantasy that only total possession counts. This also means release can sharpen rather than soften moral life. If you stop owning the result, you may see your actual duty more clearly. If you stop forcing, you may notice the action that fits. If you stop clinging, you may care for the other without making them carry your fear. The hand becomes more available because it is not spending all its strength on the wrong grip. And still, the boundary remains. Some things should not be released. Truth should not be released because it is inconvenient. Responsibility should not be released because it is tiring. Compassion should not be released because it makes you vulnerable. The traditions are not asking for less seriousness. They are asking seriousness to stop disguising itself as possession, force, or clinging. This is where the three traditions become practical without becoming a list of tips. They do not tell you exactly which message to send, which relationship to leave, which grief to keep speaking of, or which plan to stop forcing. They give tests for the quality of your holding. A test is humbler than a command, but it may be more faithful to complexity. The honest act after release may still be difficult. In fact, it may become clearer and harder at the same time. Without panic, you can no longer confuse exhaustion with effort. Without clinging, you can no longer call possession love. Without false ownership, you can no longer pretend that fate is your private duty. Clarity removes some suffering and some excuses. The three knots are visible again. One was tied to false ownership, one was tightened by force, one was held as possession. From far away they looked like the same problem. Up close, they asked for different kinds of release. This is why letting go is not always giving up, and also why it is not automatically wisdom. The difference lies in what is released and what remains. If you release the act that is truly yours because you are tired of moral discomfort, that may be avoidance. If you release the fantasy that the outcome belongs to your will, that may be stoic clarity. If you stop doing what must be done and call it flowing, that may be fear. If you stop forcing a method that has become harmful, that may be Taoist responsiveness. If you become cold and call it non-attachment, that may be withdrawal. If you loosen the clinging that demands permanence from what changes, that may be Buddhist insight. The same outward motion can hide different inward truths. A hand opens. Did it abandon the cord, or did it stop strangling it? A person grows quiet. Is the silence punishment, fear, patience, or care? Someone says, "I accept this." Does acceptance mean reality has been admitted, or that responsibility has been evaded? Philosophy cannot answer those questions by appearance alone. That is why the night remains honest. The unresolved thing may remain unresolved. The message may not come. The grief may not soften on command. The outcome may still be uncertain. The duty may still wait for morning. A serious account of release does not pretend otherwise. Stoicism helps when the mind is trying to possess what is not up to it. Epictetus gives the hard boundary. Judgment, desire, aversion, pursuit, and action belong differently from reputation, response, body, office, and the changing world. Marcus helps when that boundary must still live inside duty. The point is not to stop acting, it is to stop making the result a possession of the self. Taoism helps when the will has become too loud. Laozi's water, empty vessel, overfilled container, and unclaimed work all ask whether action has lost its fit. Zhuangzi's skillful ease reminds us that less strain can require more attention. The point is not to do nothing, it is to stop forcing in a way that makes action blind. Buddhism helps when care has hardened into clinging. The Four Noble Truths name craving. The teaching of impermanence and not self asks why the mind demands that changing experience become mine, myself, what I am. The water snake simile warns that even this teaching can be grasped badly. The point is not to stop caring, it is to stop turning care into a fist. Maybe the most honest question is not, should I let go? It is slower. What am I holding? What is it costing? What would release leave me responsible for? If nothing responsible remains, maybe you are tempted by escape. If the honest act remains clearer after the grip loosens, maybe release is not defeat. There is no need to make this triumphant. The hand may open slowly. It may tremble, it may close again and need to learn the difference more than once. That does not make the inquiry false. It makes it human. One knot loosens when you stop claiming what was never yours. Another loosens when you stop pulling past the point of wisdom. Another loosens when you stop asking change to become permanent before you will call it safe. None of this guarantees peace. It gives the mind a cleaner way to stop confusing grip with responsibility. The stillness is not defeat. It is only the first moment when the knot can be seen without the hand making it tighter. The final humility is that you may have to ask these questions more than once. A knot loosened tonight can tighten again tomorrow. A judgment inspected once can return with a new voice. Force can creep back into a good intention. Clinging can hide inside a noble cause. That does not mean the work failed. It means release is not a single heroic gesture. It is a discipline of returning to the hand and asking what it is doing now. If there is a final image, it is not a cut cord. Cutting would be too simple. The better image is a cord lying with enough slack to be understood. One end may still lead to duty. One may still lead to grief. One may still lead to love. The hand is not banished from the table. It is only no longer tightening everything in order to prove that it cares. This is why release can be humble. It may not feel like victory. It may feel like the end of a private argument that no one else knew was happening. It may feel like admitting that the night cannot do tomorrow's work. It may feel like choosing not to turn pain into a crown. These are small movements, but they are not nothing. Not giving up means the faithful act remains. Letting go means the false grip loosens around it. The difference is the whole question. It is also the reason the hand can open without betraying what it loved. There may be a quiet grief in discovering that the fist was not helping as much as you hoped. The grip cost something. It cost rest, imagination, tenderness, perhaps even the very action it wanted to protect. Seeing that can bring relief, but it can also bring sadness. The mind may need to mourn the old belief that enough holding could finally make life safe. That sadness should not be rushed. If letting go is treated as a triumphant trick, the whole inquiry becomes shallow. The better ending is more modest. You may still care, you may still hurt, you may still have no answer tonight, but the confusion between grip and responsibility has been weakened. That is already a meaningful change. The three traditions leave you with three different forms of courage. Stoic courage says, "I will do what is mine without demanding ownership of what is not." Taoist courage says, "I will stop using force where force has become blindness." Buddhist courage says, "I will care for what changes without demanding that it become my permanent self." None is easy, none is passive. So if the hand opens, let it open without spectacle. Let it open enough to feel the cord rather than strangle it. Let it open enough to notice which act remains. Let it open enough to stop making the night prove what only time can show. Release is not defeat when it gives truth more room than panic had allowed. The ending must resist the hunger for final certainty. A careful philosophy can leave the listener with a question, because some questions are better companions than premature answers. The question tonight is not weak because it remains open. It remains open because responsibility, force, and clinging are living matters, not objects that can be solved once. If the mind asks for one last proof, let the proof be this: after wise release, the faithful act is easier to see. After avoidance, the faithful act disappears behind pleasant language. That difference may not remove fear, but it gives fear a boundary. The hand can open and still be ready for what truly belongs to it. Return once more to the quiet table. The night has not solved everything. It may not have changed the answer you were waiting for. It may not have removed grief, uncertainty, anger, or duty. The point was never to pretend that a clean idea can make life suddenly gentle, but perhaps the grip is more visible now. Stoicism does not ask you to stop acting. It asks you to stop pretending that outcomes, reputation, the past, and other people's responses are owned by your will. Epictetus gives a hard kindness there. What is yours is smaller than panic wants, but it is also more honest. Marcus reminds us that duty can remain after outcome possession loosens. Taoism does not ask you to collapse. Laozi asks where the force has become the obstacle. Water does not give up because it does not grip. The empty vessel is useful because it is not full of itself. Wu Wei is not laziness. It is action no longer distorted by the anxious need to dominate the shape of things. Buddhism does not ask you to stop caring. The Four Noble Truths ask you to see craving and clinging. Impermanence and not self ask why the mind demands permanence from what changes and identity from what cannot be commanded. The Eightfold Path keeps release tied to conduct, attention, and responsibility. The water snake simile warns that even a teaching of release can be held in a way that harms. So the final question is not a command, it is a lamp held low enough to see the cords. What am I holding that is not mine to own? What am I forcing past the point of wisdom? What am I clinging to as if change could be commanded? And after that grip loosens, what honest act remains? Maybe the answer tonight is small. Maybe it is to stop rehearsing a verdict until there is more truth in the room. Maybe it is to let a conversation rest because another push would only tighten it. Maybe it is to feel care without demanding that care become possession. Maybe it is simply to admit that not knowing is not the same as failing. Letting go is not giving up when it releases the false grip and preserves the faithful act. It becomes giving up when it uses calm language to abandon what still belongs to you. That line may not always be easy to see, but it can be asked for honestly. If the mind returns to the cord, meet it without anger. Ask which knot has appeared. False ownership asks for Epictetus. Coercive force asks for Laozi and Zhuangzi. Clinging asks for the Four Noble Truths, impermanence and not self. The answer may be small, but a small, honest answer is better than a large performance of control. The hand opened slowly, not because nothing mattered, because something mattered enough to stop mistaking the fist for love, force for courage, and clinging for care. If mourning asks for action, action can come. If mourning asks for waiting, waiting can be less violent. If mourning asks for grief, grief can be honored without being turned into a prison. For tonight, that may be enough. The cord lies on the table. The hand is still near it, but it is not pulling quite as hard. The question can stay with you without becoming another fist. What is mine to do? What must not be forced? What can be loved without being possessed? Let those questions remain quieter than panic, and more honest than surrender, if the night allows nothing more.